So, Wendell, I'm not the only one who's done an obstacle course race. You got a medal there.
Ooh, look at this bad boy. It's so shiny. It's so shiny. I'll pull it up for you so you can see it real.
Oh my gosh, it spins, John.
Look at that.
Now, I don't know.
Cooler than what you went.
I know it's not like those Spartan stuff, but mine spins. Yes.
So Wendell, I was told that Spartan had these little pie pieces that made, if you do all three of their events, you get this, special thing. And I said, how dumb is that? Until I got my first pie piece. And now, John Draper, I want the spinny thing.
No. Listen, you do the Spartan racing, you got a Spartan man back there. If you do the rugged man racing or whatever, rugged warrior or whatever it is, you're going to have a rugged maniac behind you. That doesn't sound like a good idea.
Well, let's go to the promo, John, and maybe he'll be back there when we start.
All right, let's do it.
Welcome aboard Lifelines with David and John, your guide to charting the transformative course of crisis intervention and the game-changing 988 Lifeline.
Well, hey there. Welcome back to Lifelines, the 988 podcast, where every call is a chance for a fresh start. We're coming to you straight. Today, we're actually in Atlanta and rippling out across the nation. We're diving deep, Wendell, into the heartbeat of crisis intervention every week. We're exploring the rich history, and we're looking at the electrifying future of 988. I'm David Covington, and I'm here alongside my partner, Brooklyn, Dr. John Draper, crisis guru that I'm so thankful to have been able to work with this last almost 20 years now. You can watch the two of us on YouTube with our guests every week. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel, or follow us wherever you get your podcasts. This show is brought to you by Behavioral Health Link, and this is episode 14, Dr. Draper. You wanted to do it every week, John, so here we are. Today, I'm really excited about hearing from Wendell. Tell us just a little bit, John, about our guest today.
Wendell is kind of Mr. Everyman and everything. He does so much for BHL. He's a certified peer specialist. He's also a minister. He's a community outreach specialist for BHL, an advocate for mental health. He's on the NAMI board of Georgia. He's got so many certifications in addictions counseling, and not only peer specialist, but also Christian counseling. He is our everyman, and he is our everything. And so glad to have Wendell with us today.
Oh, thank y'all for having me. I didn't know who the person was that you were describing at first, because I'm like, I've done all of that. Wow.
You have, and you're still doing it.
So, Wendell, tell us something that we might not know about you.
Oh, what you don't know about me is that I'm actually an introvert, but I developed the skills of an extrovert. But I love being renewed in solitude.
Yeah, that's an introvert. Yeah, recharge his battery.
I love coming out and playing sometimes, but when it's over, y'all. Time out. I'm going home. So it's great. It's great.
Wendell, the other thing we do to start the show is John and I take a shot, and it's absolutely forbidden to look on your Facebook page or get any inside information, but we try to take a guess at what you're a super fan of. Super fan. So I've got a blank sheet of paper here, John. John, what is Wendell a super fan of? Okay, just write something down real quick.
Here we go. All right.
Okay, you ready? What you got? Singing.
With a voice like that, he's got to be a singer. Got to be. You got to be able to sing.
I think he's a super fan of the NAMI walk.
Wait a minute. That is, and you did just draw that in the last 3 seconds.
Yeah, I took a shot at it.
Yeah.
Wendell, singing or NAMI walk or something else?
NAMI walks.
Well, sing a few bars if you could. Let's just see.
Okay.
It could be our favorite thing that you do.
Okay. I got you. Everybody let the burn me down. Oh, everybody to say it right, but you know.
Now that was
Wait a minute. Is that the Muppet theme song? What is that exactly?
That could be. That could be.
Wendell, you're not baritone. Were you teasing us? I assumed you were like a big rich baritone. No.
I can be either or.
Let's hear the baritone.
You'll never find doom, 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 a love like mine. Doom, 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 someone who loves you.
Wow.
Like I do.
Cancel the rest of the show. I'm ready. Keep going, Wendell. This is awesome. That is good. I told you. See, we're a super fan of your singing. You may not be.
All right, so forget Nami Walks. John, thanks so much for bringing Wendell's singing into the mix. I love it.
Yep.
So we're gonna get into this discussion with Wendell, but first, let's right here, Wendell. Let's hear about our sponsor, Dr. John Draper at Behavioral Health Link, and its crisis software coordinating system.
That our dear friend Wendell has been a major force for Georgia community outreach and mobile crisis teamwork in so many ways. How great it would be if we had a technology that could help us reach out and connect with people in communities all over the state like Wendell does. Well, no technology can do exactly what Wendell does, but Behavioral Health Link's GPS-enabled mobile crisis response software does the next best thing. This platform redefines rapid response, integrating advanced GPS technology for locating the nearest teams or team members to a client. So it can locate Wendell at the neighborhood Starbucks and let him know he's the nearest member to a person in crisis, and he can grab his latte and confirm he's on his way all in real time. This module displays detailed maps that tell us not only what teams are, but also what teams are near, but also how long it's going to take for them to get to the people in crisis. So it's going to just embrace the next level of mobile crisis intervention, all of us, where every second counts, with our state-of-the-art dispatch technology, which is almost as good as having a caring professional like Wendell Fields living right next door to you. To learn more about our mobile dispatch software, just check out behavioralhealthlink.com. And David, I'm not sure you know this, but Wendell has been a huge help in our call center software and helping it become more person-centered. So he's been advising on that and doing a great job.
Terrific. And John, that takes us into our first segment. Wendell, we start with a trivia question, and we're going to do an over-under. And Dr. John Draper, he's an expert in crisis, so he gets to come up with the number, and then you get to say, I think the true answer is higher or lower. It's over or under. It's an over-under question. And John, let's keep the discussion of peer supports, nothing about us without us. This co-design that you're talking about is so critical, and it's what's really transforming not only mental health and substance use care, but crisis care as we go. So our trivia question to start is going to center on this topic of peer supports, and I'm going to focus on how many certified peer support staff do we have in the United States? And by we, I mean the field, the industry. Let me give you some data that might help you consider, John.
Please.
There are about 350,000-ish licensed professional counselors in the United States. There are about 700,000 or more professional social work staff. So we're looking for how many certified peer supports as this industry becomes, there's a professional orientation that develops around peer supports, and the number of peer support staff grows. How many do we have today?
So you said 350,000. That was certified professionals of outside of peer specialists? Is that right?
I was talking about licensed professional counselors. Let me give you an exact number.
Yeah,
on
LPCs.
that,
Okay, got it. All right.
388,000 LPCs like myself, 708,000 professional social workers.
Yeah.
So according to, and I looked at NAMI's feedback on this, SAMHSA has some information as well, but how many certified peer specialists are there?
Well, I know that right now there is there are grants, and there's been legislation in some areas to promote peer support. And I would assume that's because it's not everywhere, and it needs to be everywhere. And I would guess there are probably maybe half the states have certified peer specialists. I'm going to say about 30. I'll say 50,000.
50,000. Okay, so Wendell, I will say, and you may know this already, Wendell, all the states do have certified peer specialists of some kind. The states vary in the way that they look at this. There isn't a national certification. As a licensed professional counselor, the reciprocity of states is increasing, but there's a national certification for counselors. The Mental Health America has kind of an add-on, like a master's of certification. But that's where we're at. John said 30, and then he went to 50. So is it higher than lower than 50,000 certified peer specialists?
I'd say a little bit higher.
So the actual number, and John, I thought you were going to thread the needle yet again today. The actual number is between 30 and 35,000. Dr. Draper, you're back on top.
Yeah, I was thinking it was about 10% of the licensed professional counselors, but the good news is that there are opportunities in every state.
I want my money.
So, John, I think that tees up the discussion with our certified peer specialist here, Wendell.
Yeah, Wendell, you have told me a little bit in the past about your journey towards becoming a certified peer specialist with Behavioral Health Link. And it's a really interesting story. I wondered if you could share that with folks.
Okay. Well, my journey starts off a little bit with being scared, actually, to really come forth and share with people my mental health condition. And with that, depression is one of my diagnoses, and anxiety. And in that, I used to drink alcohol to try to cope and deal with the specifics of it, if you will. And just some ACEs or adverse childhood experiences that I've experienced from being bullied, being sexually molested, emotional, mental, physical abuse, and that sort of culminating into my behaviors and responses. Let me say it, no, reactions to all those things. And lashing out, just somewhat being out of control. Just thought I was nobody. I thought I was just being a statistic. And that's all I was good for, is being a statistic. And in this growing up and starting to really get involved in some things, with being bullied in high school and in elementary and everything, it was sort of like a teacher showed me grace and mercy, and it influenced me to go to college. I went to Tuskegee University. And in that, though, because of all that trauma and all of that, it ends up that I started drinking. And in that, I got kicked out of school. And so, yeah. So it's just a continual thing, getting married, trying to cope and deal with the hurt and the pain. Hey, I became a licensed ordained minister, and hey, worked for the good old state of Georgia for over 30 years, just recently retired. And, everything sort of like going good, but I had on a mask. In that mask, the golden mask at that, it just caused more headaches and pain. I already thought I was a failure. I felt like a failure, although I had these good things happening. But as soon as I got up to a good point, it's coming down on the roller coaster of life. And I just couldn't handle it, you all. And I decided that after getting a divorce, the lead minister got into some trouble, which broke up the church. And with the job I was on, got written up so many times. It was pathetic that I decided that, and with the arrears, that child support, that was it. That notice in the mail was what got me. And I decided to take my life in 2008. And but let me tell you, two things got me that day. A voice of God saying, your son, and two, a doggone pothole. A pothole saved my life. Even though it busts up your tires and everything, but a pothole saved my life. And in doing so, it caused me to really go out and seek care. But I was scared again, scared of the medications because of the side effects. I tried talk therapy, and y'all remember Eddie Murphy in Coming to America, the first movie? And you remember he's trying to get to know his bride to be, and he pulls off to the side and says, hey, what's your favorite color? And she says, what? Whatever you like. That's what I thought therapy was, a whatever you like session.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't leading, guiding, encouraging, none of that.
Yeah.
And with the medication and the therapy, I said, screw that. And for 10 years, I tried to white knuckle it, and it ends up that it was the worstest things I could have done to myself. For 10 years, from 2008 all the way to 2018. And in that, I've heard of all the people. I know y'all have heard of this person, Kevin Hines. How many people have heard Kevin Hines? At that time, he was one of three that had survived jumping off the Golden State Bridge. And he was at a state function giving his story. And in that, the Joker had me boo-hooing and crying because I could identify with another man who I've never heard before tell his story. And that's what motivated me to get involved more in my recovery process because of Kevin Hines and what he shared. And from there, I got on medications. I mean, I had a team of people that helped me, you all, to get to where I am now. So don't think you can make this thing by yourself. Please implore people to help you to get the help that you deserve and that you need, because it really does help. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Kevin Hines, Teresa Johnson, and Dr. Thurman. Those people showed me unconditional love, care, and they pointed me for direction to get help. So when we talking about the crisis intervention services, you all, they are really there to help you, not hurt you, not harm you, but to uplift you and help you to get to a stage in life that you can say, okay, I can go on a little bit further now. Mm-hmm. And guess what? God uses me just to get you to the starting line, because each journey is different for everybody. But he's using me to get a person to the starting line of recovery.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit. I know I might have talked a lot, but hey, it's the point. It's the point.
So much for sharing.
And that was the question, Wendell, is your journey to becoming a certified peer support staff. And let's take a pause, John, and let's look at our good news for today. That good news leverages exactly where Wendell was going. And this guidance is actually a couple of years old now, John, that I'm going to bring up. But it is SAMHSA's feedback about bringing peers into crisis work. So Wendell, you had tried the more professional components of medication and clinical engagement, but it was a person with lived experience who you knew had been in the place you had been. which made that connection with you and really got you to this role of peer supports. And it's an ongoing discussion, but the thing about this June 2022 SAMHSA advisory, John, which I think is such good news, is it's pointing the way to peers being a part of crisis care, being in that mobile crisis team, being on that call line, that text or chat service, or being in that crisis receiving. John, I'm interested a little bit because I know there was a time when there were centers like the Georgia one, which were primarily that clinical model of a counselor being the first person you talk to. But Wendell's laid out a powerful story that people who've actually been there before and are willing to disclose some of that can really make a difference in that initial engagement and turn lives around.
Yeah, and I again, your story is so powerful, and it comes from such a real place that I can't help but think, Wendell, that every time you talk with people that you'd like to reach out to, that they can feel that connection of their experience to you and your understanding about how it does come from a real place and connect to the real place in them. And that's what a genuine connection is all about. And that is also what pulls people, as you know, out of that sense of being totally alone and in despair.
Yes, it's amazing when we can connect with one another. And I just remember going out on the call with Mobile Crisis, and the gentleman was sort of being hesitant. He was being sort of guarded too. And I remembered that they were like, no, I don't want to go. I really don't. And I just said, hey, I know where you've been. It's not a good feeling, is it? It's sort of scary because you don't know which way to go, what to do, how to do it. You've tried it this way, you tried it that way, and it wasn't successful. And so in that, you got up there and I've been where you at. Can I please talk with you? Will you allow me to sit down? If you're not comfortable with me being beside you, hey, can I sit down in front of you on the ground if it's okay?
Yeah.
And really connecting with that person and giving that eye-to-eye contact and total attention and unconditional love, plus not being judgmental, but being right there in the moment to help that person to hear them.
Yeah.
And not offer any judgment and apologizing. I'm so sorry that happened to you. Man, that seems so tough, rough, and man, how did you get? And then the conversation starts to dwindle, and the guards come down, and they're more willing to engage and share their story with the clinician that I was with, And we were able to get that person to accept services and go to the hospital and address their needs of their loved one being taken care of by a family member so that they can go get the help that was needed.
John, we've got mobile crisis staff all across the state, and increasingly this model of a social worker or a counselor being alongside a peer, someone with that lived experience. This is great stuff, Wendell. I want to go back to the last segment for a moment, though. You mentioned your son, that your son, that voice from God came to you, and that pothole were the combo. But talk more about your son and how that went forward, because that was a thread that carried through with the purpose and your support. Let's hear about how that went forward.
My son, he's sort of introvert like me, but yet he goes out just a little. And here it is. He's 16 years old, enjoying life, doing great. Ends up going to the gym by himself at 16, and ends up doing some squats on the Smith climbing machine. He wanted to do his max, showing his strength and all of this, and it ends up that he goes down, he goes back up, no problem, but he wants to do it again. Yeah. And so he went down, and when he tried to come back up, he was having a hard time. So the mindset was, all I got to do is just move out the way and it'll drop on its own and all that, right? And it ends up that he moved forward and it immediately dropped, and it dropped on his back. And in that, it broke the L1, the L2, and my son was unable to walk from the waist down. And he went into immediately going into back surgery. And it's a ride there and everything. And couple of nights after the surgery, I'm there with him. It's just he and I. It's in the late hours of the night. And he looks at me and he says, "Dad, I don't want to live anymore. If this is what this is like for the rest of my life, I don't want it. I want to die." What do you do? I remember crying. I remember praying. I remember grabbing his hand. I remember and the best thing I could ever do for him was say, "I'm right here with you." And in that, I held his hand and I didn't let it go. And in that, he fell asleep and I still was holding his hand. My legs are tired. My back is tired because I'm bent over to make sure that I'm in still reach of him. In case he wakes up, he knows that I'm there.
Right.
And it ends up, that he woke up at about 5 o'clock in the morning. And before the nurse came in, and he looks at me and he said, "Dad, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
I don't think I could have made it if you weren't here." So that voice that said, your son, I think that voice knew what was coming in the future and helped me to be an asset to my son in his hard time, in this time of struggle. That's what a CPS can do.
Yeah.
They can hold the hand of someone as they're going through, helping them to gain the strength, the confidence, and the understanding about how to get through this thing called life. Even though you have a condition, I'm still right here. You are not alone.
Yeah.
You got so many people that are out here wanting to help you to be the highest, the best, and full potential coming through. Man, let me tell you something. BHL has been a lifesaver for me. It allows me to be myself. It allows me to connect with people, and it allows me to put in, let's say, my sugar, my spice, my flavorings, my just the whole shebang, even sriracha. I tell you, sriracha, the hot stuff,
Living
and
it
it
live.
allows me
All good stuff.
but
From the soul, brother.
but BHL has really helped me, you all, to develop that, to connect with people and help them to get to the quote unquote starting place of a recovery. It's different strokes for different folks, and not everything is going to fit, for you, for me, but when we get to that starting point, oh my goodness, that means you've developed some confidence. That means that you develop a sense of identity and where you want to go. And so BHL has provided me with that oomph that really does help other people.
Well, and again, we're so grateful to be in a position. It's a privilege for David, me, and everybody at BHL to be basically shepherding individuals such as yourself, Wendell, into a position where you can give back to the community all of the things that people have given to you. And then we see how people light up in your presence. And what you said about your son, and I really enjoyed that thread that you drew from that moment that you had this voice of God that said to you about your son. And here was your son later saying, Dad, thank you for being there for me. And that thank you for being there for me is probably what many of the clients of BHL have felt or said to you over and over because you have been there for them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Tamika Holland, she's one of the clinicians that works with the mobile team. And she did a little testimony about me helping this client that I was talking about. And her compassion, her saying, it wasn't like, oh, no, I'm the clinician and you're the FCC, or the field care consultant. No, it was nothing like that. It was like, hey, Wendell, I believe in you. How about you go on and connect with this person? Yeah. And we did. And I'm telling you, that broke those barriers of fear of I don't know, and that feeling of hopelessness and helplessness. It broke it. CPS's help with breaking the stigma barrier. I'm telling you, it's one of the most wonderful things that I know I've been involved in. But I know it's a different world with a doctor, with a therapist, and everything. But let me tell you, when you help them to get that starting point, and then the doctors, then the therapists can come in and show their skills, their talents, their abilities to help this person grow. Holy smokes, man. What you say, what you say. Magic.
So it is magic, Wendell. And let's do a little bit of an interactive segment now, John, where let's go into the history of how we were able to get to this point. And there have been pioneers in the peer support space who've really carved the path for this work to be done. So I've got a series of questions, guys. Jump in, whoever can answer it first. And let's see how this goes. So first question on the history of peer supports. Who were the first support groups of peers?
AA.
Bill W. and AA. Now, a peer was called a sponsor then. Now, and I'm not sure AA was the first. There were Native Americans doing things as early as the 1700s where it had a similar feel, but AA is the answer to that one. Okay, let's go to the next one. Which peer advocate is credited with establishing the first outpatient mental health clinics in the U.S.?
What's his name from MHA? Why am I forgetting his name?
I'm not giving it to you. Clifford Beers.
Yes.
So,
Beers. As in what you used to drink way back then, Wendell.
So Clifford wrote A Mind That Found Itself in 1908. Isolations and restraints were frequently used as punishment. He was routinely kicked or struck. Brutal treatment was common and accepted, and proper medical care was lacking. So he absolutely was a key figure in helping. I never realized, John, that it was out of his thinking that really laid seeds for outpatient mental health. So great job, John. Yep. Now, Wendell, you referenced Beards. This organization, formerly known as John Beard, in New York, revolutionized the old day treatment into a new approach where members, not patients, all had meaningful roles in the clubhouse and community.
Wow. You know this one, Wendell. You got it? It's Fountain House, right?
Fountain House, yeah.
Fountain House, yeah.
Fountain House is awesome. Fountain House, of course, Aisha, who's one of our Crisis Jam hosts, John, is now part of that team.
Yeah.
All right. So Wendell, John's been around the block on this. Let's see if he can keep going. But jump in here if you know it, Wendell. She published On Our Own in 1978. She was a shameless agitator. She used to wear buttons. They would say things like, "I used to be sane, but I got better." No limits on recovery, and shrink resistant.
Wow.
I love it.
I'm about to say Mary Copeland.
Hold on to that one. John, do you know?
I don't know.
Her name was Judy Chamberlain. And in fact, she went on in 2000 to write the report From Privileges to Rights, which was part of the National Council on Disabilities report. She said this: there are real indignities and real problems when all facets of your life are controlled, when you're told when to get up, to eat, to shower, and chemicals are put inside your bodies against your will. Really part of that movement. Okay, so here's another one. And this one, the Recovery Innovation staff have to know this. This is part of our DNA. Bill Anthony, I just gave away the answer. I'll say it a different way. I'll say it
Bill Anthony. Do the Jeopardy version. Who is Bill Anthony?
Okay. Bill Anthony and this university were behind the psychiatric rehabilitation movement. What's the university? On the right path, Wendell? It's Boston University. Bill Anthony said there's a revolution brewing in the field of serious mental illness. It's a revolution in vision. It is what believed to be possible. It will be up to consumers and family members to lead this recovery. All right, Wendell, be ready. Strike fast, Wendell, because John's right there. She developed a rap. Copeland, Mary Ellen Copeland, yeah. All right, and this is a trick one. Wendell, you're going to have to be super fast on this one. Name either of the leads for the National Action Alliance for Suicide Prevention Task Force on suicide attempt survivors.
I'm going to give you a shot. Come on.
I'm going to give you a shot.
They're both going to be in the plain truth here at the end. I'll leave it. Well, I'll let John come back to that one. And finally, this person said, in our movement, we don't have a token seat at the table. We lead the table. His name was actually Phil Pangrazio. But what was the movement he was talking about? In our movement, we don't have a token seat at the table. We lead the table.
Peer support service. That's what I'm thinking of. Now in Georgia, is it in Georgia?
It's not peer support. He was looking at peer supports and saying that in too much of the country, it's a token seat at the table. He said, in our movement, we don't have a token seat at the table. We lead the table. John's chewing on that one. Phil leads the Ability 360 Center in Phoenix for people with disabilities.
Okay.
People with disabilities. So, John, let's go back to our conversation with Wendell. And you talked about meeting Kevin Hines and the impact. I'd love to hear a little bit more about, you've continued a relationship with Kevin. Tell us about the work that you guys have done together and the ongoing impact of his friendship.
Let me tell you, this joker gets up here, and so I got to put it this way. So we met at the summit, at this mental health collaboration thing, right? And I'm boohooing and crying, and I go up to him, and I told him literally, I said, "You saved my life today." And he's like, "What are you talking about? Oh, what's your name?" And I was like, "My name is Wendell Fields, and I'm just here." And he gets up there. He say, "Hey, how about if I get your name and your number?" And I say, "Yeah, sure, yeah." But other people were coming around trying to talk to him and all that. So I did a Nicodemus song. I did a Nicodemus. I went away in the night, if you will, left him where he was standing and thinking that I would never, ever see this joker ever again in my life. But he started that, right? Next thing I knew, the joker was coming to Behavior Health Link to do a movie called Suicide, The Ripple Effect. And he was talking about using those moments of hardship to make it into things of great connection with others, like putting a dime in a pond and it makes the ripples go out. And so this joker comes up And he says, I know you. And I said, yeah, I know you too, you know. And he said, you told me that I saved your life and you left before sharing it with me. And I was like, I did that. Yeah. And I got ready to talk to him and tell him how he did that. And you know what he did out of the graciousness of his heart? He said these words. He said, stop all production. He said, I want you in this film sharing your story with me. And that's how the brother man got on this multi-award winning documentary of touching the lives of millions. And I do mean millions. Mm-hmm. And it was a sharing of letting him know that, man, you've touched my heart so much that now I want to give even more to other people. And in that, we've come together more. We've done a number of broadcasts together. My brother's keeper. We did Marvel Heroes, and really connect. Even with Rising, it was a piece way back, about 2, 3, 4 years ago, and we are talking about the awareness of suicide prevention and how that you have this, you have that, you have this component, you got that component. And it was a really holistic approach to working on being healthy and not only being healthy, but being even more healthy to help other people. And I tell you, those are the projects that I've been in with Kevin. We still talk today. I just awarded him the Clarence Fields Whale Tail Award. It's after my dad, and it's celebrating how people can change each other's lives. But the whale tail is one of the powerful muscles that help that whale to move, you know? And so he causes movement. And so I'm telling you, those are the things that we've been doing, we continue to do. It's about changing people's hearts, minds, and souls.
It is. And, you know, Wendell, you talk about ripple effects and what the whale's tail could do. You said a couple of things that I really want to emphasize that I think are so important for people to hear and remember. One is that the work that, for example, Kevin does in telling his story affected you. And now you're telling your story, which is affecting others. So this is, again, a kind of a paying it forward sort of response that it's exponential how the storytelling can affect one and then affect many more. The other thing that you said that I think is incredibly important for us to remember is that you're not only helping people in their recovery, but by doing so, it's helping you in your recovery.
Say it right. It really has, to the point where it's allowed me to be on a platform called NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, to where I'm a board of director, to where I get up there and I share. It's a program called In Our Own Voice. Right. And in that, I go from hospitals to business offices, to various places in the community, and share my experience about, you know, mental health and mental health conditions and managing it. And let me tell you, NAMI has been such a great service for me, because it teaches me how to advocate. It teaches me how to educate others, just using my lived experience. And it helps me connect people with resources and supports that's out there to help not only the individual, but the families and the loved ones to really understand this thing called a mental health condition, and what to do and how to do and where to do it at, when to do it. And NAMI has been a great, great source of support and encouragement. But BHL still got my heart, y'all. BHL still has my heart.
Wendell, this has been a great conversation and love hearing your heart and your story. Let's now do our last interactive segment. And we're going to talk about another filmmaker, not Kevin Hines, but Tyler Perry. I did look at your Facebook page, and you had one of the Tyler Perry movies that was on there. Tyler Perry, John, was the first African-American to own a major film studio outright. He bought a 330-acre studio in former Army base in Atlanta, and his studio is now generating thousands of jobs and attracting significant investment to the region. Now, Wendell, John owned you in that last Peer Supports History trivia. I want to see if you can outdo John in this Tyler Perry trivia.
Mama, Dia.
Right. That's not the first question. Here we go. True or false? Tyler Perry was once homeless before finding success, living out of his car, and faced numerous rejections. True or false?
Pick me. It's true. No. That's true.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. He was. And we're gonna come back to a similar story in BHL's Absolutely True Tales. Number 2, Tyler Perry shares his real name with the Dallas Cowboys star Emmitt Smith.
False. So.
Wendell?
True.
It is false. It's a tricky one. His real name is Emmitt Perry Jr. He changed his name to distance himself from his abusive father.
Wow.
Tyler Perry's first successful play was Medea's Family Reunion. True or false?
Say true.
John says true. Wendell's not with that one. No, that Medea's Family Reunion was 2002. Way back in 1992, he did I Know I've Been Changed, which he self-financed, Wendell. And he produced. It focused on child abuse, dysfunctional families, and the power of faith and forgiveness to overcome trauma. Okay, here's one, right? Let's see if we can get this one, Wendell. Tyler Perry's character Medea is based on his aunt and grandmother.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, that's true. These were the strong women he knew growing up, and he made it into his character. Number 5, Tyler Perry had a small role in Forrest Gump.
False.
John?
I'll say false to that, too.
Yeah, no. No, that was before his time.
Forrest Whitaker. It's great, isn't it?
Number 6, Tyler Perry has won an Academy Award.
False.
Academy?
Yeah.
I want to say true.
It's not yet. Not yet. Now in 2021, in 2021, he was awarded the Gene Horschelt Humanitarian Award at the Oscars, recognizing his philanthropic efforts. Just a couple more here. Tyler Perry created a television show, House of Pain.
True.
Yeah, multi-generational family who lives under one roof in Atlanta. Considered a great portrayal of the African-American family. Wendell, what do you think about that?
It can be. It can be. You got the uncle, you got the father, you got the mother, you got, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And lastly, Tyler Perry's first film, Diary of a Mad Black Woman, was a box office flop.
True.
False.
Absolutely false. He spent $5.5 million and grossed $50 million on it, John.
Okay. All right.
Off and running.
Nice job, Wendell.
All right, so that brings us to the point now, Wendell. Every week, have you been watching these podcasts?
Some.
Yeah. So if you watch them, you get to hear the absolutely true tales of Behavioral Health Link. And today, John, I'm going to go back to 2000 and I believe it was 9. John, I'm going to start this one with you were there. you and I were at the steering committee meeting for the Lifeline in Rockville, and someone mentioned that Mental Health America was celebrating its 100th anniversary. So I talked to, I think it might have been Bob Glover who got me tickets, got me a ticket to get into the audience for that. And there were Hollywood stars and media people. And Sherry Jenkins Tucker was the Clifford Beers Award winner for her leadership in peer supports in Georgia, Wendell. And of course, Sherry was a psychiatric nurse who had also been homeless at one time, lived out of her car, had a serious mental illness. And my first thought was in the midst of all of these superstars, how would Sherry hold her own on that stage? And I don't remember anything else that night but her talk. It was just rock star. I actually found it on YouTube, and I'm going to read just a little bit of it. She said, "I'm a person that believes in recovery. I do carry the credential of ITE, ITE for I'm the evidence. I'm the evidence that recovery works, and I believe with all my heart that all people can recover. I believe in the power and strength of peer support. It's changed my life and thousands of others." She said, when I was nominated for this award, I was so flattered and delighted. And then when my friend Larry Fricks got so excited about the prospect that I would be the Clifford Beers Award winner, I had fretted about how I was going to find the strength needed to give him the peer support he needed to get over the disappointment. She was an amazing leader. Wendell, did you ever meet Sherry Jenkins?
No, I have not.
Yeah. So, John, that's the incredibly true tale of behavioral health.
I'm just going to say I wish I was there, David. I don't know why I wasn't, but boy, that sounds like a moment to remember.
Yeah, it was a moment. And John, I think we've been talking this whole episode about the pioneers and the ripple effect and the growing movement of the transformation of peer supports. And I think that brings us to some plain truth, John.
It does, David. Thank you. And Wendell, it's been great having you with us today and with BHL every day as a community leader and a certified peer specialist. We have peer specialists on nearly every BHL mobile crisis visit at BHL, and that's pretty common for many mobile crisis teams nationwide. A recent national survey reported over about a third of mobile crisis programs included peer specialists. And SAMHSA's 2020 national guidelines for behavioral health crisis care also listed peer specialists as essential for staffing mobile crisis teams and community crisis receiving facilities. And that's great news for crisis care, as research shows that peer staff providing behavioral health care works. We've seen evidence that shows how peer specialists can help keep people out of emergency rooms and hospitals, reduce substance use, depression and psychotic symptoms, and improve clients' self-care, hopefulness for the future, and sense of community belonging and life satisfaction. My old buddy, Eduardo Vega, a national leader and training peer specialist, taught me that it's not just having lived experience with suicidality or mental health problems that matters. It's knowing how to use that experience to support others and make them feel more connected, less alone, better understood, and more hopeful. Eduardo calls this lived expertise, or the ability to apply one's lived experience to help others. Peer specialists apply their lived expertise in helping others through positive self-disclosures, role modeling, and accurate empathy with their recovery struggles. Now, while it's great that peer staff are seen as essential for mobile teams and crisis receiving centers, I wonder why persons with lived expertise are not also recommended for the other domain of crisis services, that is, for the crisis counselors answering 988's front door, the people you're most likely to talk to. SAMHSA's National Crisis Care Recommendations, as well as Vibrant and Ashford's 2023 document on addressing workforce challenges in crisis centers, and Vibrant's new policy for equity and belonging in crisis centers, don't mention peer supports or lived expertise as considerations for staffing crisis contact centers. It's kind of ironic that crisis centers are the only one of the crisis services that national policies and guidelines have not targeted to include peers and lived expertise. America's 60-year crisis hotline history is built largely on the backs of volunteers. In fact, most of the National Lifelines calls were answered by volunteers at network centers just over 10 years ago. And we know that many of these volunteers have personal experience with suicide loss, suicidality, or other mental health crises. Regardless of whether crisis center staff are paid or whether they're volunteer, I imagine that many of our Lifeline Center staff members today have lived experience, but we just don't invite, leverage, or refine their lived expertise in their hotline work. And guess what? We know that we could leverage that lived expertise more, because in a SAMHSA-funded evaluation of suicide hotline calls about 20 years ago, Dr. Brian Mashara found that there was one counselor behavior that hotline directors had advised counselors not to do that was among the more effective things that they actually did with callers, and that is self-disclose. As Eduardo Vega would have predicted, when they applied their lived experience in ways that were directly intended to support the caller, callers felt less alone, more understood, and more hopeful. Now, I'm not suggesting here that we must employ certified peer specialists on crisis hotlines like we do with mobile teams and crisis receiving facilities. And I'm not saying that that's what we should be aiming for with crisis hotlines specifically. And I'm also not saying that you must have lived experience with suicidality or mental health crisis to be a great crisis hotline counselor. What I am suggesting is that valuing, inviting, and refining more lived expertise in our hotline work benefits us and callers that we serve. For me, suicide and suicide attempts and serious mental health crises have not been central to my own personal experience outside of work. However, the lessons that have been taught me by my friends and colleagues with lived expertise over the past 30 years are with me daily, and they underlie the importance of counselors providing genuine empathy, collaboration, and choice in crisis hotline work. I've learned more from my colleagues with lived expertise than most anyone else. So in 2015 at the Lifeline, we began promoting this idea of incorporating more lived expertise in crisis center cultures. Eduardo Vega spearheaded this project for crisis centers called Activating Hope. Here are some of the suggestions that Eduardo noted that centers could consider towards baking more lived expertise into their work. First, provide statements that diversity and lived experience are organizational values in counselor job ads and job descriptions. Second, ask in a counselor job interview questions like, what personal or professional experience has inspired your interest in this work? Third, create safe work environments for discussing lived experience. And fourth, train counselors on how and when to consider applying self-disclosures in ways that can effectively build rapport and hope with callers. So David, Wendell, here's the point. Our national SAMHSA guidelines for crisis care really think it's essential that we have someone like Wendell Fields on our mobile crisis teams and at our crisis receiving center. And if you had to call 988, wouldn't you also want someone like Wendell on the other end of the line when you felt like you were at the end of yours? David, that's a wrap.
Terrific, John. The SAMHSA national guidelines talk about the call takers being under clinical supervision. John, you've talked about the key aspects being a caring, trained person. Who better, John? Who better than folks like Wendell who are going to make that connection
Absolutely
right out of the gate? And we're talking about workforce issues. So yes. A huge thank you to our guest today. Wendell, thanks for being with us. Thanks for your impact, your leadership, and the work you do at Behavioral Health Lincoln with NAMI and otherwise. We appreciate you. Look forward to working together more. And John, great timing. Be sure to join us next week when we will welcome Dr. Brian Mashara from the University of Montreal. And I remember those initial surveys of his findings and recommendations, and he's going to be key to ask this question, John.
I'm looking forward to it.
About peers on the 988 crisis call and text outreach. So thanks for letting us draw you in this week. Come back next time as we continue to navigate the currents of crisis and care. Until then, remember, every life, every call, every story matters. Stay connected, stay supportive, and we'll see you on the next episode of Lifelines.